Nick Wagner, who covers the Niners, tweeted this. One thing Kyle Shanahan said this morning on what communication was like with Garoppolo this offseason, quote, "We don't do a lot of talking in the offseason. Jimmy is not the most communicating guy." On Trey Lance, quote, "Trey is a guy I talk to all the time," end quote. Now, is he saying I never talk to Jimmy in the offseason? That I'm not sure, but he is talking to Trey all the time. I would say that's another sign that points to Trey Lance's ongoing role as the 49ers starting quarterback.
Yeah, you're a happily married guy, been in a relationship a long time. When you date, sometimes when you transition, that you have a consistent communication with one girl. And then if things start to sour a little bit and you meet someone else, or maybe you meet someone else, it goes both ways. You start talking to that other person, the communication with your former girlfriend, however you want to, qualify her, starts to diminish. And then once you kind of really get hot and heavy or see the future with the next one, you cut off communication with that person. And even if they're not a great communicator, or they are, even if they text you, you might not be likely to text them back. So I think this is a telltale sign that I would imagine 2 years ago, Kyle and Jimmy were texting in the offseason, right? The Super Bowl year and leading up to that, like that was his quarterback. He has a new girlfriend, basically, the equivalent of a new quarterback. So I just think it's a natural progression of meeting someone new, having someone new, and having a new, kind of that excitement, anxiety is probably the wrong word, but just nervous energy of like what could be. But you're also nervous, like it could not be, it could be bad. That's where I think you see it on Kyle's face. Like, I think he's hopefully optimistic, but he's also, I think this is why he kept Jimmy last year. He's not into having a month where the guy can't function, right? I bet when they say he's talking, he's probably not just talking about like life. I bet they're like
they're talking football. He's texting him clips of his footwork, right? Like if I got a printout of your cell bill and it had all the text messages you sent, and there was a number that you texted a lot, and I said, "What's the deal here?" You couldn't say, "I don't really know that person," right? If you text them a lot, then I assume you have some. What are you talking about? Nothing. Well, you're talking about something. And I think that's a good sign for the time for Trey to play, and Jimmy's not going to be on the 49ers crowd. The other thing I thought was really interesting what he said about Greasy. He called it Brian Greasy, the Niners' new QB coach, the smartest player I've ever been around. And he went on to say, quote, "I love that Trey has someone who's been through the battles that I can tell him about it, but someone who's actually gone through the ups and downs." And he went on to say, having a good game, having a bad game, handling the media, all of those things. Basically, Brian Greasy can give Trey Lance a perspective that Kyle Shanahan knows he cannot. And that's why he loves having him on the staff now.
Yeah, to me, when you alerted me to that, I think there are people, I talked to a couple friends in the league, they were like, what the hell? Hired Brian Greasy? What the hell is he doing? Because I think it's fair to go, that's a really weird and risky hire. Guy who's never coached. Like, there are a lot of players, right? A million players that always claim they coach, but they've never done it. And there are a lot of coaches that never play and that are pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Right? So.
And in fairness, some of those players, remember you and I interviewed Marshall Faulk. Oh, was it Marshall Faulk several years ago? He was like, I want to be a head coach. It's like, well, you're going to become a running backs coach? No, I just want to be a head coach, right?
And it was only in the NFL. Like, he wasn't going to do what Dion did, right? So it's like, no, you just want to be famous and be the head guy and get all the benefits without doing the work. I give Greasy's willing to do this job, even if he's making $700,000, $800,000, $900,000 a year. That's the going rate for quarterback coaches. But I do give Kyle credit on the clearly there was thoughtfulness. Of course, I mean, anytime you make a coach or hire an assistant coach, but if you're going to go outside the box, like I do understand with like where he's coming from on that one. But are you just hiring a guy simply for confidence building and being able to like relate to the guy? Now, and Kyle might just say, like, I'm running the X's and O's. I need more of, like, I can be an asshole. Like, I need a guy that, and one thing, just watching Greasy on TV, seems like a pretty even-keeled, normal, nice guy. Maybe he knows, like, I need that type guy around a young quarterback, so it's not always me. And now McDaniel's gone.
McDaniel's kind of a good balance, it seems like, for him.
Yeah, so that's a pretty big loss. Maybe we don't think enough about that on the outside. The personalities with an assistant coaching staff are really big. Like the high-level guys, the mean guys. Like the one thing you would say being at Niner practice is Chris Kasurik. And I saw it with his mentor, Jim Washburn. They're on guys, and it's really intense. But then, like when Sala was there, or now D'Amico, like their presence is a lot different. It feels very uplifting and positive. And Kasurik is just lighting guys up. I mean, it's like holy. But you couldn't have all 7 defensive coaches like that, right? You can't. Just like I don't think you could have just all Kyles. I even heard Matt Ryan like Kyle's intense, man. Like he is. I think Gruden's a good example. When before Gruden got his career ended, like he couldn't just have 7 John Grudens on the staff, right? It would just wear you out, and it's basically like he's bringing Brian Greasy just to be psychologist might be undermining his value, but kind of play a role like that.
Yeah, I think psychologist is a little just good cop is a little undervaluing just because he also called him the smartest player he's ever been around, right? So there is an X and O element that he also values. But to your point on Matt Ryan, I always say go back and watch. There was an interview that Kyle and Matt Ryan did in the week leading up to the Super Bowl against the Patriots. And they talk about getting to know each other and how it kind of took a year for Matt to really have the full grasp of Kyle's offense and how much better it's made Matt and blah, blah, blah. And you can tell they are not – you can tell that for Matt, it took an adjustment to work for Kyle, to play for Kyle, because Matt was already a star in the league, right? Now, Kyle made him an MVP, but Matt was a number 1 pick who had panned out. And I think – Kyle walked in and changed his life a little bit. It made it a little harder. And you can tell, I think you can see it in the interview that they're cool, but they're not like, best friends either, because there's probably some things about being Kyle's quarterback for a veteran in particular that makes it hard. And maybe that's where, getting this guy from the beginning is good. I wonder what it would have, you've always said, like, what would it be like for Tom Brady to play for Kyle Shanahan? What would it be like for Stafford?
I think it would have been, I think Stafford would have been fine. I do think that Tom would have been difficult for Kyle.
And vice versa. Kyle might have been a little difficult for Tom.
Yeah.
In the same way that Arians, right? Those stories come out about Arians and Tom. And a former quarterback happens to be the OC and is maybe a little bit of a buffer, right, for them.